Welcome back everyone. I hope you've been keeping well after the long break between the Singapore GP and the upcoming Austin GP. As we gear up for the next sprint weekend in the USA, let's take a quick look back at the Singapore GP. The weekend still shook things up in the championship standings. So, let's dive into qualifying and break down who came out on top and who struggled. Let's start with the winners. Coming in at number 5, we've got Yuki Tsunoda, who secured a solid P8. It was a commendable drive for him, proving he can still drive under pressure. At number 4, Nico Hülkenberg continues to impress. He dragged that car up to P6, showing once again he can outperform the machinery he is given. For third place, it's great to see Lewis Hamilton back in form, taking P3. Many were surprised to see how strong the Mercedes looked after qualifying. It set him up nicely for the race. Now in second place, Max Verstappen. This was a big improvement for him and the Red Bull team compared to last year, and it was a crucial result for his defence of the Drivers' Championship. But number 1 has to go to Lando Norris, who secured a P1 in qualifying. This gives him a great shot at challenging Max and finally breaking the streak of misfortune from pole. Alrighty then, now let's move on to the losers of qualifying. In 5th we have Kevin Magnussen. While his teammate secured P6, Kevin could only manage P14. It's performances like these that may explain why he struggled to secure a seat for next season. Taking the 4th spot this weekend is Sergio Perez. After a disappointing weekend in Baku, many expected a stronger performance here, but it didn't materialise. And third place on this list goes to Charles Leclerc. The Ferraris were simply off the pace, and this was evident in their poor qualifying results. Coming in at second is Carlos Sainz. Just like his teammate, he couldn't find the right balance. He had the snap in the car that ultimately sent him into the wall, cutting short his qualifying session. And finally, in first place is Daniel Ricciardo. A P16 start wasn't what he needed to keep his seat secured at RB, and with all the off-track drama surrounding him, the qualifying result didn't help his case. Now, let's compare qualifying with the race result and see how our winners and losers fared on race day. After the race, the 5th spot goes to Nico Hülkenberg. Despite dropping from P6, he still managed to bring home 2 points for Haas by finishing P9. The 4th spot on this list goes to George Russell, who held off the charging Charles Leclerc and finished P4, making it a solid day for Mercedes. Oscar Piastri takes 3rd place in this list, moving up from P5 to finish on the podium in P3, locking in crucial points for McLaren in the Constructors' Championship. Now this may surprise you, but Lando Norris comes in second for me. Yes, he won the race, but there's someone else who deserves the top spot. Nonetheless, a dominant performance and a great day for him and McLaren fans. And finally, in first place, for me, it was Max Verstappen. He may have finished second in the race, but his podium finish was key for his championship lead, and thanks to his old teammate Daniel Ricciardo snatching the fastest lap point, Red Bull had a reason to celebrate. Now, although we've gone through the top 5, I think it might be worth having an honourable mention moment here. Both Ferrari drivers deserve a shout out here. After a disappointing qualifying, they both made significant strides in the race, so they do get a real honourable mention for this weekend. Now it's time to move on to the losers from the race. In 5th place, Sergio Perez. He did pick up a point, but was it enough? With Red Bull shaking up things in their junior team, you would have to wonder if changes are coming. And in 4th, for me, Valtteri Bottas takes this spot, and with a P16 finish here, it looks like it's going to be a difficult end to his season. Once again, I'm sad to be giving Yuki Tsunoda another spot on the losers list, as he had a great qualifying, but a P12 finish was disappointing. The second half of his season has been a struggle, and this race was no exception. Another tale of sorrow is Alex Albon being on this list. With him starting P14, many had high hopes for him to climb the order, but technical issues forced him to retire, landing him second on our losers list. And at the top of our list, unsurprisingly, the crown goes to Daniel Ricciardo. Starting P16 and finishing P18 is not the result he needed, given his fight for this seat next season. This race wasn't what he needed at all, despite snatching the fastest lap point from Lando. And that wraps up our quick recap on the Singapore GP. We'll now dive a little deeper into the Ricciardo situation before we move on to the fantasy review. So, Daniel Ricciardo is being replaced by Liam Lawson at RB. It's been a hot topic, of course, and we're going to break down what led to this, how Lawson has performed, and what this means for the future of both drivers. So let's get into it. Let's set the scene. Daniel Ricciardo returns to the grid with AlphaTauri mid-season, hoping to prove himself and make a comeback to his best form. But as we know, an unfortunate injury to his hand during the practice in Zandvoort forced him to the sidelines. This opened the door for Liam Lawson, the reserve driver, to step in and take his place. Liam's performance, right out the gate, he impressed. He showed a lot of composure for a rookie, especially given the high pressure situation he was thrown into. He had a solid debut in Zandvoort and has shown consistent improvements in every opportunity he's had to race. Now, let's quickly look at why Daniel Ricciardo is being replaced. When he had his injury to his hand, it took longer to heal than expected, and AlphaTauri needed someone who could consistently deliver results, and Lawson stepped up to the challenge. making it clear that he's not just a fill-in driver, he's here to compete. And ever since those drives back in 2023, it has been pressure on pressure for Daniel Ricciardo, as Liam Lawson has been waiting in the wings, and now it's finally happened. So, what does this mean for Daniel Ricciardo? Well, it's unclear right now. There's been a lot of speculation about if he'll stay on as a brand ambassador for Red Bull as a brand. I think we should measure our expectations, and we all wish him the best, but I can't see it happening for long, as Daniel Ricciardo is an ambitious individual, and I can imagine him wanting to move on to the next chapter in his journey. Who knows? He might make a return to F1, as seats are always moving, and he has got raw talent, but will he ever be able to bounce back from what's taken place? Who knows? But for a man who's made such an impact on and off the track, I'm sure you and I and anyone else wish him the best. Now, as for Liam Lawson, this is a golden opportunity for him. He's shown that he's more than capable of handling the pressure, and if he continues to impress, it's going to be hard to imagine that RB won't be happy with their decision. So, to wrap this segment up, Ricciardo's being replaced by Lawson, and it's a tough but understandable decision from RB. Lawson's record has been strong, and the team needs someone who can consistently deliver, and only time will tell if this was the correct decision. And finally, let's move on to F1 Fantasy and Review. A quick summary for the top 3 winners is Jess, Chris and Ben. They had a great weekend, but the points are really close, and not just for those top 3. The points are very close for the leaderboard all the way through, as you can see here. My team being 215 points, I was quite happy, but I thought with George being able to hold off Leclerc, I thought my points would have a better showing, but Hamilton I think let me down in that regards. For myself and many of the other teams, Alex Albon's DNF hit me and our scores pretty hard. And as I already mentioned, the scores across the weekend were pretty close from 1st all the way down really to 8th. And I think everyone did averagely quite well if you had the Mercedes or you had the Ferraris. Obviously the McLarens were a no-brainer, and I didn't see any of us have Max, but I'm sure if you had him, it was going to be quite good, but it's expensive. And the only real losers for this weekend in F1 were people who had Albon, so the joint losers of this weekend were myself, Mum and Lawrence overall, and if we didn't have Albon we would have been much better for points. So congratulations really to Jess, Dad and Ben for a good weekend, and I'll see you all in Austin. Goodbye.